this Northwestern football program story and the fact that Pat Fitzgerald, a longtime Northwestern Wildcat of note, and of course the former coach of Northwestern football, being fired over a hazing scandal that is mushrooming and ballooning as we speak. And to make heads or tails of this and keep us more informed than we already are is a man we always reach out to for this sort of thing. Yahoo Sports columnist and one of the best in our business, Dan Wetzel, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Dan?
I'm well, Rich. How are you?
I'm struggling to follow this story. I'm not going to lie. I'm having a little bit of a struggle here. So let's start from the ground floor and what we know about what's going on at Northwestern and its football program, Dan.
Okay, I'll recap if you want.
Please.
Recap it?
Please, do it. Go for it.
I hate to just take 3 minutes because it's not it's not easy. All right, so last November they get a complaint. The university gets a complaint, anonymous complaint. There's hazing inside the football program. So they immediately hire an outside law firm, independent investigation. And they announce in January they're doing the investigation. No one really pays any attention, whatever. 7-month investigation. They interview over 50 people inside the program, formerly with the program, including the original complainant. They go through text messages, emails, practice schedules, all this comprehensive investigation. Friday, the school announces that they are done with the investigation and they are suspending Pat Fitzgerald for 2 weeks. Here in the middle of summer. They do not release the report. This is a public school. They would almost certainly have to release the report because it would be a public document. It's a private school. It's unusual in major college sports, but so they do not release it. They release a little, basically 2-page, not even 2-page executive summary that has almost no details. This was their first mistake. They say, hey, 2 weeks for Fitzgerald. They dump it on a Friday in the summer on July 4th week. Hope no one will notice or something. I don't know. These news dumps on Fridays actually are the exact opposite of what you want to do because it's like a red flag that there's something else there. Everyone's kind of in on the deal. So that's their deal. They say, hey, we've got this whole report 2 weeks. Well, the original complainant does not appear to be satisfied with this, so he goes to and speaks to the student newspaper at Northwestern, later speaks to ESPN and some other people, quite predictably. He can say whatever he wants and should, and he lays out the details of his complaint, which are pretty troubling. All of a sudden, President of the University says, well, maybe I erred now that the public is getting to hear some of the information. He says, maybe I erred in only giving a 2-week suspension, and by Monday, Fitzgerald's out. So the school didn't have any new information on Monday that it didn't have on Friday. It just changed its determination from 2 weeks at a time of the year when literally nothing is happening in college football to this guy who's coached 17 years is gone. Maybe they should. I'm not saying Pat Fitzgerald got wronged here. I don't know whether he should be fired or not. I don't think anybody does because we don't have the full context of what this investigation entails. What are the different perspectives? What did the other 50-something people say? All of that. We only have the information from the complainant. This is like a court case. It's just a court of public opinion. And what Northwestern allowed is basically, and again, I'm not saying it's wrong, the guy's wrong, but you basically let the accuser make a statement and call no witnesses, no questioning, nothing, and that shapes the court of public opinion. So should they have fired Pat Fitzgerald back on Friday? Maybe. Did they change their opinion based on public sentiment? Maybe. We don't really know. All we know is that over a 3-day period, they went from, a small punishment to a very serious punishment, or the ultimate punishment in terms of termination. And that's where we're all wondering what happened.
That's exactly why I wanted you to start from the ground up and why I said I'm having trouble following this or forming an opinion on this. Because the other thing we do know, though, is a significant amount of pushback from a ton of players, including a document that was put out, signed by the entire Northwestern football team with the word entire in all caps, in which the statement was these alleged incidents didn't happen, and the coach didn't know anything, which is odd because those sound like they're conflicting statements. Nothing happened. Coach didn't know what happened, meaning something had to happen that the coach didn't know about that raised enough of a red flag to get the coach suspended for a couple weeks. You know what I mean? Like, so that I honestly, it's difficult to find the plot here. It's easy to lose it.
Yeah, and that statement, first off, they got 100 people to sign something in a couple hours, and the wording of that sounds suspiciously like a lawyer wrote it. But I have no doubt he has widespread support amongst the team. But this is why you need to release the full report and get out in front of the story. I don't know what happened. Nobody knows quite what happened. So was it as bad as it says? Is it slightly lesser? Is there other perspective applied? What are the other – right? You want that comprehensive view. And that's what the president, Michael Schill, had on Friday. And presumably their board of trustees, and everybody was in agreement on Friday. We have the full picture. It merits a 2-week suspension. And now you're fired. And you may, everyone else, Northwestern fans, anyone else sitting there going, well, what changed? What's the full story here? Because when you had the full story on Friday, you said 2-week suspension. Now you're saying fired. Again, I don't know. And maybe they made a mistake by not firing Pat Fitzgerald. I'm not saying he's getting mistreated. Maybe they blew it last Friday, and now they're correcting and making the right decision on Monday. It's their decision. It's not mine. All I know is what the heck changed so quickly, and where is the information? So the team, Fitzgerald, everyone, even the university, is on their heels because they mismanaged this thing. They could have come to the right decision at the end and still mismanaged this process. And if you put all the information out, maybe it's even worse. I don't know. But it also might have provided some context where you sit there and say, hey, look, this isn't good. Solve this problem. Maybe 2-week suspension makes sense. But when you only hear the worst parts of the accusations, which, again, could be true and could merit a firing, though, you sit there and say, gosh, this is really bad. What the heck? How could this ever happen? We have no explanation of how this stuff could have happened or why it happened or if there's any context to it. So the whole thing has been a mess. It's been very poorly handled, and it's leaving everyone confused. I have no idea whether Pat Fitzgerald should or shouldn't be fired. Maybe he should, maybe he shouldn't. I just know that they decided to after originally not deciding to.
Did the complainant talk to the school president over the weekend? Did they have contact?
Yeah.
Okay.
He talked on the phone to him, but, his full statement would have been, and his full information would have been he also spoke to the investigator. So maybe it was the personal part of the president talking to the complainant that changed his opinion, but maybe that could have been done before. I don't know.
It could be that. It could be that line from A Few Good Men that he strenuously objected. And
strenuously objected.
Right, you know what I mean? Like, not to make light of it, but to basically talk to the school president, and then what fills the void here is a lot of the players saying this complainant had an axe to grind and wanted Pat Fitzgerald to be fired, and that was the goal all along. Then you also, I see on my Twitter feed that there's been rumors of hazing in this program that go back to the early aughts when Fitzgerald was an assistant and potentially even when he was a player. So he's just basically carrying this out to a different level. I honestly, and I know it is rare, certainly in the Big Ten, to have a private school. But don't you think Northwestern needs to make this thing public at this point in time?
I think it would solve a lot of it. Would allow people to come to form a more complete opinion, and that's you're just stuck without knowing exactly all that went on. And I agree. It seems like something that they have been doing for years and just wasn't stopped, and that alone is a critical mistake. It's 2023. Pat Fitzgerald played in 1996. He's been coaching there since the aughts, right? Times change. standards change, allowable behavior changes. Everybody acts a little different, says things different. What might have been probably shouldn't have been allowed in 20 years ago. Maybe people just accepted, and now they don't, and that can be that's generally a positive thing. So you have to change your program. I would think, and I would have thought this was already done, particularly after Iowa went through this with a strength and conditioning coach they had to fire, and Kirk Ferentz kept his job there. But you can't tolerate abusive behavior within your program. And I would think every single college, even high school coach in the country, or maybe even NFL, would be like, is anything like this happening at our place? We need to root it out. You can't just say, I didn't know about it. You need to root it out. They look, 30, 40 years ago, they didn't talk about like how to handle alcohol or violence against women or things like that within a football program. Maybe now they bring in people to discuss this stuff with educate, do all those types of things. You need to do it with hazing and say, hey, look, we're not allowing this anymore. I can't do it because, look, it's Pat Fitzgerald, if only because I could lose my job, let alone it's the right thing or this isn't how we build communities anymore. So there's a lot there, and I certainly understand the perception of, well, Pat Fitzgerald says, well, I didn't know about it. Well, how didn't you know about it? You're the head coach for 17 years. Nobody ever said a word about it. What is the answer to that question? Again, that answer might be in this report, but we don't know it. Pat Fitzgerald hasn't spoken really yet. So there's just a lot of unknown and a really big switch on what's going on. And I think anybody who cares about Northwestern football, and there are people who do, the more information they get, the better the school will be in the long run. They've tried to kind of just hide this and brush it aside basically twice now. Once, trust us, he just deserves a 2-week suspension. And now trust us, he deserves to get fired. I understand why a whole lot of people with Northwestern aren't trusting either of those.
Dan Wetzel of Yahoo, a few minutes left with him right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so we're less than 2 months away from the Northwestern opener at Rutgers. That is, I'm seeing on my screen here, is scheduled to be nationally televised on CBS the Sunday of Labor Day weekend. So what's next here? I mean, and how plum is this job? It is in the Big Ten. It is in the third largest media market in the United States. And I understand there's always the provost that stands there in Northwestern with a hand up and talks about transcripts and the like that maybe other member schools don't have. How attractive is this job, do you think, with all of this hanging out there, Dan?
Well, they'll definitely go interim for this season. I mean, this was not a good team the last 2 years. They won 4 games combined. So there's a lot of work to do. Northwestern, you can make a case either way. But, historically, the academic requirements hinder recruiting. It's only, I think, 8,000 students at the school. It's not really a large school that, smaller private schools, it can be a struggle. And, so historically, it's never been a great program. Fitzgerald's done an amazing job. They started winning basically when Pat Fitzgerald showed up and have done pretty well since. But again, this is a team that won 4 games the last 2 years. Now you're in the Big Ten. You've got a lot of money. I mean, they have one of the most beautiful practice facilities in the country. They're in the midst of trying to build an $800 million football stadium on campus. That's kind of right-sized for them that I think would help, but you're also in a 16-team league with a whole bunch of sharks, and the divisions of the Big Ten West and East are going away. And the Big Ten West was always historically the weaker division, and it offered a path for Northwestern, both in schedule and in who they're competing against, to twice win the Big Ten West. That's no longer the case. They will play Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State regularly now, and then you also still have USC, UCLA coming in. So in many ways, they have a lot of money, but the job gets harder and harder as the Big Ten keeps expanding.
Dan, appreciate the time, man. Let's talk as the season approaches. Greatly appreciate it.
Always ready for you.
Thanks, Dan. You got it. That's Dan Wetzel. Must follow at Dan Wetzel on Twitter, and must read on Yahoo Sports right here on The Rich Eisen Show. I knew he would know. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.